I'm guessing MCM's cameras aren't working, so they brought their high definition. I think that's their high definition camera, and that's part of what our agenda.
Test driving it.
Are we?
It's a camera that they're considering buying, and they're just test driving it.
Oh, okay. Because what we're all about tonight is high definition with Comcast.
That's the next step. That's something that my TV can run.
Yeah. So is it 4K?
That's what it says. It says
Okay.
4K on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Thanks. What? Yeah.
Not stomping grapes.
Not stomping grapes yet, but it's been a busy summer. Yeah.
Crushed this season. They do it mechanically. Okay. Ready to all that.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. I've got a nice meeting with some of the Linfield folks today.
You had a meeting with who?
Some of the Linfield folks talking about town and gown opportunities.
Oh, cool. You're just exploring all sorts of relationships here.
I am. That's what I do. It's one of the things I do, as you well know.
Well, I don't know.
So you came back for the hottest of the weather, as it turns out.
As it turns out.
You were dodging the heat on the coast, and it turns out to be.
I wish I were there today. It's 55 there.
Yeah. Well, so we went to Manzanita on Saturday to have family pictures taken on the beach, and
fun.
found a place in Garibaldi to stay. So we ate lunch in Tillamook, and Doris had never been to Tillamook, and so it was the first time in a very long time.
Oh, did she have cheese curds?
So we did get cheese curds, although not on Saturday. So we drove over Saturday, went up to Manzanita, did our photo shoot, had a really fantastic meal at a place called the Blue Wave. Really as good a seafood as I've had in a very long time. It was fantastic. And then we headed back to Garibaldi and stayed the night, and got up the next day and decided we wanted to do one of those pedal on the train track kinds of things, but we hadn't made reservations, so we didn't get a chance to do that. But went into Tillamook and did the cheese factory and had some cheese curds and some ice cream. And then made our way back to town.
Well, it sounds like a nice weekend.
It was
all
a
things
nice,
considered.
yeah, it was a nice overnight trip.
So, the store's considering our options and looking around a little bit.
She had an interview today with the cancer fellow.
I think that might be a good place for her for a while.
Maybe she also has an application in at Linfield. So that one's a little less certain, both in terms of timing and.
Well, with the change in regime, you might tread carefully about it. Yeah.
Well, it's actually it's a position that was open last year, and they decided not to fill it until
Oh, is the person
the
on board?
president came on board, and then they reworked the positions. It was a little bit different than it was when she posted for it last year. And they decided not to fill it.
Well, Linfield really loves good fundraisers, and if she can do it, she'll
Although
like her.
fundraisers in higher ed are historically not very well compensated. So, I mean, even at the University of Oregon, except for like the department director, most of their development folks were making in the mid-40s, which is not much.
No, that
And,
is not.
I mean, it's not, I mean, she's making 63 at YCAP. So
How does the Cancer Foundation look?
they would meet or exceed what she's making now.
Well, it's probably a better way to go. Doctors are a little bit, but they have a board that's.
It's a pretty big board. It's kind of a mixed board now. It's still heavily dominated by medical interests, but they've got a number of business people that have been recruited to that board, and it's not just docs. There are one nurse and at least one dentist on the board, as well as some of the doc types. That's some kind of ad hoc folks as well. Turns out a couple of people from our Rotary Club are on the board. Bruce is on the board. Patty Warner's on the board. Well, actually, I think Patty Warner officially on the board? Yeah, Patty Warner's on the board. Kevin Chambers is an ad hoc member on the board. So
Well, that's good. That's a good opportunity for her to get to know him.
Yeah, so there are at least three new Rotary members. There might be a morning Rotary member on that board, too, that I just don't know.
I'll see some.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
Where all the magic happens.
No, that's great. I'll say a little prayer.
Thank you. I shall appreciate that.
It's been a long day, hasn't it?
When they kept going until after 2, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be rude, but when they give you a timeline,
Yeah, because you'd seen the plant before, and so.
I mean, I
That's
had
kind
seen
of-
the plant before, and I didn't really feel like I needed to see it again, but, everybody there wanted to see it.
Yeah. Well,
It's okay, it's just,
I just think it's phenomenal to have, to know that the majority of council's seen the asset now. And
oh, no, I think it was great. It was a good turnout today. There's all sorts of good food back there.
oh, yeah.
Melissa, thank you for not making it a box lunch, okay? Because we just had one a few hours ago.
Mm,
Do I have room for Dale next to me? All right.
the meat is there.
Meat's good. I knew that.
I don't think we do.
I don't have beef from the long farm.
Oh, this is low carb.
The nameplate
Huh?
for anybody?
This is low carb.
Yeah.
Well, I was really good today. I didn't have my cookie.
I didn't either. I started to nibble on it, and I finally threw it away.
Yep, I just,
I thought, no.
How's everybody this evening?
very good.
Good. How are you?
Okay.
We had all morning up in the watershed.
Yes.
Fantastic.
It was actually very nice up there.
We met with an engineer on getting the fire station seismically upgraded
Oh, really?
for the
Great.
process. So
Oh, good.
we'll be applying this year for probably be $1.5 million, $2 million project,
Oh, that would be
fully funded.
fabulous.
Can we do some other upgrades, our economies of scale during that process?
We're going to wait and see what is impacted,
Mhm.
and then that would determine whether or not it would be actually be an economy of scale or not.
Okay.
We're holding up the bathroom work specifically because of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if it ties into that, then we'll tie it in.
That'd be really nice. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I know you.
Dale.
Dale, pleasure to meet you. I'm Kelly
Hey, Dale, how are
Mankey.
you tonight? Excuse me, Mayor. Thank you. Hey, Chief.
Boss, how are you tonight?
Be better with a nice glass of red wine to go with this.
Whatever you want, Rich will get for you.
My bottom drawer. I brought it.
Melissa, I didn't see any ice in there. We don't
You're a
have ice.
firefighter. I know damn well it's Yukon Jack. It's not that's not a red wine.
Oh, gosh. Had a good meeting with
Oh, good. Good. Good.
They
Good.
will continue to be an open process. Closures up to mid road,
I think that's the way to go.
not to impact any parking access.
Yeah.
Their stuff.
Yeah.
They'll have every block have volunteers stationed.
Got your card.
How'd you get in there?
Sneaky.
Because we were there and you were out there.
Have my way.
High quality card.
Redid our cards.
Yeah, David was very thoughtful.
Fantastic. I just kind of used his format
Yeah, the only one I have.
and put their responses in his format and added in any of the general comments. So I've sent that meeting summary back to them to make sure that we're on the same page and I'll shoot back to you. Get it moving.
Excellent. Thanks for doing that.
Hey, Chief. Thanks to your crew for putting out my neighbor's fire yesterday.
Oh, was that your neighbors?
Yeah, right next door. They were using my garden hose to.
One of our off-duty guys, yeah, our volunteers was there that took care of that before we got on.
He came into my yard and he grabbed the hose and I'm like, went out there. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, there's a fire right there. Sorry. I'm like, go for it. Thank you.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This evening, during our work session, we had an opportunity to meet over at the McMinnville Public Library and specifically go through the enhancements to the children's room and view the bookmobile that's continuing to be used very effectively. Very impressed with the fundraising activities and the enhancements in that children's room over at the library. So again, thanks those that were a part of that. This evening, I'd like to move to an invitation for citizens to make public comment. And we call on anyone that would like to speak to the council on an item of interest. Some things that we're not able to talk about are matters that are in litigation, quasi-judicial land use matters, or matters scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We have in the back cards that if you'd like to sign in for that, we'll give you 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes. Melissa, did you receive any? I'll just call out in the audience anyone that would like to approach the council this evening. Seeing none, then we'll move to our consent agenda this evening. Our consent agenda this evening are to consider the minutes of the May 8th, 2018 regular City Council meeting, the May 22nd work session and regular City Council meeting, the June 12th, 2018 work session and regular City Council meeting. And then we have before us this evening an OLC limited on-premise license request from the Blue Ocean Wineries LLC located at 2803 Northeast Orchard Avenue. Is there any councilors that would like to request to have any items taken off of our consent agenda this evening? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll take a motion.
I so move.
And a second.
Second.
It has been moved by Kelly and seconded by Wendy. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The consent agenda this evening passes unanimously 6-6. That takes us to a discussion item this evening. We talked about this at our last City Council, and this has given Jeff an opportunity to further receive comments on the League of Oregon Cities discussion on legislative priorities. So I'll call on Jeff to lead us in a discussion on those priorities. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, I put together a table that includes the initial staff suggestions as well as the feedback we got from members of council present at our last meeting. Councilor Drabkin had sent in some comments prior to the council meeting but was unable to join us, and Councilor Stassens was not in attendance at the meeting. The council was interested in making sure the full body had an opportunity to weigh in, so I am happy to take any suggestions from members of the council who either were here or were not here last time around. And maybe with the mayor's permission, since we didn't get a chance to hear from Councilor Stassens last time, we could turn to her to see if she has any priorities that she'd like to identify. While there's no obligation that folks select any particular number, I did note that Councilor Rudin only selected 2. The rest of the council members looked at top 4 priorities, and so perhaps Councilor Rudin wants to add a couple to his list, and of course anyone can make any changes that you'd like to suggest.
So Wendy, if you have any thoughts on the priorities?
Yeah, I found it particularly prudent for us to look at PERS. Both of the topics on PERS, I think, would be a priority for me, considering what we're facing with. And also permanent supportive housing investment. The beer and cider tax increase, Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the beer and cider tax increase was one that the league identified. Actually, all of these priorities were identified through a series of meetings with the league's various policy committees. The beer and cider tax has not been increased for quite a long time. Marcia, do you remember how long it's been from the briefing? I think the detail may be in the briefing packet. I didn't include the entire briefing packet this time around, but it's been probably 20 years or so since those taxes have been increased. They're distributed along with other state shared revenues on a formula basis to local governments, and we felt like it was one of the few revenue items on the list that might have some immediate impact.
Considering our emphasis on increasing revenue, I think that would be an important one if it increases the revenue that's coming back to the city.
Thank you. Alan, any input from your perspective on any additional?
Yeah, I forget what we were talking about with the third.
So, Councilor Rudin,
About the third-party building inspections.
So there was a little bit of conversation. I think two of the councilors identified that as a potential priority. It was listed as one of the staff priorities. Right now, the state's building codes division has taken a position that building inspection services cannot be contracted out by local governments, and their current position is that all building inspectors have to be employees of local governments. In our case, that is the case most of the time. There are times when there are projects that are kind of beyond the scope and expertise of our staff, and other cities routinely will hire a private sector inspection service or plan review service. Sometimes it happens when there are building booms and the workload just outstrips the staff. There are other times when there are vacancies and we need to bring in an outside consultant to help us move projects forward and keep up with the demand. It's a pretty common practice in local governments and has been for a long time, but it is something that the league is paying attention to based on the Building Codes Division's current position on the issue.
Yeah, that one, I'd put an X there for me. That was, I know in McMinnville we've had numerous changes in the last year.
Right.
And they're hard to find really good, well-trained, competent inspectors.
There aren't a lot of new inspectors being created,
especially
nowadays.
on a short notice, and then some training. So, so the state is looking at requiring.
Yeah, the state's taken the position that that the third-party inspection is not allowable, and
under any circumstances,
that's their current position.
Yeah, I don't think that's so.
We believe, well, they are relying on a Department of Justice opinion for that. That opinion has not been shared publicly, so we don't know what the legal basis for that is.
As far as liability to the municipality, or?
Pardon?
As far as liability to the municipality that is being served?
Well, it would create a circumstance where if a city or a county can't afford or doesn't have those inspectors, they would be in a position to have to contract with the state of Oregon to bring those inspectors on, or another local government, which can happen in certain circumstances. There are times when neighbor governments have the capacity to take on that sort of work, but I think the expectation is that many believe that the state building codes would put itself in a position of being that direct provider of service, particularly for smaller governments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Alan, I'm just looking at any of the other counselors. Any additional thoughts or comments from what we talked about at our last council meeting?
Well, kind of as an add-on, I think probably unsurprisingly, one of the things that I thought was important to address was the permanent supportive housing investment. And then in addition to that, there is a statewide ballot measure that's going to be coming up here that I would like this council to consider adding our support to. It would amend the Constitution to allow for local bonds for financing affordable housing with non-governmental entities. It'll require voter approval and have annual audits. And I have the language of the House Joint Resolution 201, and I think I've sent that on to a couple people here, and so it can be dispersed appropriately if other people are interested in reading that. But it's something that I would like to, in conjunction with this, have some conversation about if this is something the city would like to endorse and sees as a useful tool for providing some more affordable housing options.
If it's the consensus of the council that you'd like to discuss that issue, we could put together kind of a briefing paper and bring that back to the council at a subsequent meeting for discussion.
And I would almost think, too, to run that by the Affordable Housing Committee to get input from them so that we could get their feeling and read. I did look at that, and it gives us another tool for the tool belt, I think, Remy.
Yeah, we're currently in a position where we have, just by circumstance and some change in employment at a number of agencies around town, we have a lot of vacancies on our Affordable Housing Task Force, and of course this will be on the November ballot. So, I think I certainly wouldn't be so brazen as to speak for the Affordable Housing Task Force, but knowing that our main goal is to be adding tools, and as the chair and our co-chair is here, and we have other members here, but we do have a lot of vacancies, and I would hate to hold up council discussion waiting for a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Task Force when we are seeking members right now, and a lot of them, so we're a little disjointed. Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Scott,
yeah.
as the co-chair, I would support Remy in this and having it brought to us with some staff input. I would like to hear.
I'm seeing yes down this direction.
Well,
yes,
and I was
south.
just going to say that I sent a copy of that to Heather several months ago, and as well to Remy, and I believe they did discuss it at some point in the Affordable Housing Committee, but I may be mistaken.
And it hasn't come through with a formal recommendation, but yeah.
I think given the circumstances on the committee right at the moment, it would be okay to just bring it to the council and let us talk
I agree.
about it. Maybe with some input from Heather also.
So I'm getting it looks like 100% nod. So Jeff,
So
if
we
can have staff.
we can bring that to the council
Okay.
at one of the next council meetings. So back to the legislative priorities.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to add, if I could, wetlands permitting, and I think I was already at 4. So I think PERS, unfunded liability revenue stream dedication, is probably the PERS priority that I'd put a check mark next to.
So where we are right now is that 5 members have identified permanent supportive housing investment, PERS reform, and PERS unfunded liability stream dedication. And then 3 members have identified third-party building inspection and the beer and cider tax increase. The league's asked for top 4 priorities. So
Jeff,
where would you like to go?
Could you put an X down there for me on the supportive housing investment? That would make 6 on that.
Yeah, so that's still in the top 4, but I've got that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 6, 5.
So you've got 5 priorities right now, and we can be
I see.
rebels and tell the league we couldn't get to a top 4,
Okay.
or we could.
And know that every community is
uh,
doing this same
I'll
exercise,
drop
and then
my
it'll go back
property
to
tax
LOC.
reform and shift it over to the wetlands deal.
Okay, so then
That doesn't help that.
Yeah,
so
that's-
that actually doesn't help, but that's okay.
It does, doesn't it? I thought that
it
solved it. You had
doesn't.
2 with the
What
same
are
number.
the two that are
What were
at
the 2
3?
bottom ones?
Okay, so the 2 bottom ones are the beer and cider tax increase and the third-party building inspection.
I'll drop the beer and cider and go to the third-party building inspection. I think with the beer and cider being 40 years old, it's going to go through anyways.
Okay. All right, so that gives you a top 4.
Okay.
And then I actually think all of these issues, I mean, not just the issues that are shown on the sheet as having gotten some interest from this particular council, I think the league's going to be prepared to at least play defense on any of the policy issues that may come up during the legislative session. So we'll identify those top 4 priorities as a separate follow-up item. We will bring forward a council discussion on the proposed ballot measure. I guess it's actually, the ballot measure has been approved at this point. I'm not sure that it's qualified for the ballot yet, but the ballot title has been approved. So we'll bring that to a future council meeting for discussion in either the next meeting or the meeting after that, depending on how much time it takes to pull together a staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll send that off. This evening, we are going to be holding a public hearing on proposed ordinance number 5056, an ordinance amending the 2012 to 2022 franchise agreement between the City of McMinnville and Comcast of Oregon 2 Incorporated, and that was ordinance 4960. And again, the ordinance is in front of us this evening, but we're going to hold a public hearing. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and ask if anyone in the audience would like to comment on the proposed ordinance number 5056. Okay, Jerry? Again, if you two would state your name and address, and then we'll give you an opportunity to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jerry Eichten. I'm with McMinnville Community Media. I'm the executive director, and we're at 825 Northeast 3rd Street. With me is Walt Height. Walt has been a longtime member of our board of directors, and also Carolyn O'Brien is here, who is a frequent user of MCM. She's a community producer and has also recently joined our board of directors. McMinnville Community Media was formed as a nonprofit organization in the year 2000. In 2001, we became the designated access provider for the city of McMinnville. We operate the community cable channels, Comcast Channel 11 and Frontier Cable Channel 29. We also live stream our programming and operate an on-demand video archive as well. We provide tools and training and opportunities for people to communicate in town by using the community cable channels. We produce programming as staff and also as staff in connection with volunteers, and a number of community members use our facilities to produce programming that they share as well with the cable audience. So we are here to support the ordinance. We certainly have been looking forward to this opportunity for quite a long time. We've been involved with discussions with the city and with the cable providers, and our outlook is that people should have the ability to view their local programming in the highest possible quality that's available. Comcast has now for a few years been rolling out high-definition community channels across Oregon, in Portland and in Gresham, Vancouver, Washington, Longview, Kelso. So a number of places have now their local channels on high definition. And we feel that McMinnville should too. I think rather than me continuing to talk, if there are questions that I could answer, I'd be happy to do so.
Any questions for Jerry? Sal?
Well, I just want to say, Jerry, thank you so much for the work that you've done at MCM 11, not only covering our events, but doing such a good job of providing that resource to a lot of different community events and giving an opportunity for people to develop a skill set in video production that's very much in demand right now. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
MCM 11 is primarily the main group that's impacted by this change to the franchise agreement with Comcast. And my understanding of the current agreement is that we're entitled to have up to 3 channels that are low def, and that this agreement essentially takes that and restricts our ability to have up to 3 channels, but gives us one channel in low def and 1 channel in high def that will be simulcast of MCM 11's current programming.
That's right. Comcast asked us how we would wish to proceed under this new arrangement, and we could either have chosen to have different programming on the existing standard definition channel and different programming on the high definition channel, but our preference was to simulcast or have the same programming available on the standard def as on the high definition. One of the reasons there is that not everybody has high definition cable. We felt like we wanted to make sure that the programming was available to the widest possible number of cable subscribers. And as far as the number of channels, yes, we have had the one channel 11 for a number of years. The current franchise, which you may be changing shortly, did say that there could be up to 2 more under various circumstances. We are in essence adding another channel, so we are using one of those 2 that were potentially available.
Do you see in any way that this might down the road in 4 years or ahead of the end of the franchise agreement restrict your ability to provide a service level that you would prefer, or is this entirely upside in your mind?
I think it would be very unlikely that the demand for the channel capacity would outgrow what we're currently able to provide by the end of the current franchise agreement. It ends in 2022. So no, I don't think that we would have a problem with that.
Okay. And it seemed to me that one of the weaknesses of the current franchise agreement was that we were sort of, we agreed to 3 potentially low def channels, and then sort of left it as a wait and see as to whether or not we might be able to add high definition channels, and it kind of left the city in a maybe a tougher negotiating spot with Comcast than might have otherwise been the case. So my question is, as we think about the next franchise agreement, do you have any suggestions about other ways to approach the agreement that might be, maybe, for example, thinking about both low def and high def channels as one package of services that we might require from a vendor?
Well, I don't have any. I don't have any remarkable or wonderful suggestions at this point. I think that what was agreed to last time was an adequate compromise under the circumstances. That was in 2012, and I can't speak for Comcast, but I got the feeling that high definition in community channels was something that was a little bit new for them, and they asked us if we could, wait a couple of years to revisit the issue, and that's what we've done.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to say thanks again to you. I think this is going to be a really great addition for the city, and also thanks to David and to our city manager for doing a good job of advocating with Comcast on the city's behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. Thank you, Jerry, Walt. Anyone else like to address us in the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. That takes us to ordinance number 50 56 with a first reading with a possible second reading of that ordinance. Remember our discussion of our last council meeting on first and second readings, and you know what to do if you're not comfortable with what we're doing this evening. Is there any councilor that would object to having the ordinance read by title only? Hearing none, then I'll have our city attorney do the first reading of ordinance 5056 by title only.
This is a first reading of ordinance number 5056, an ordinance amending the 2012-2022 franchise agreement between the City of McMinnville and Comcast of Oregon 2 Incorporated, ordinance 4960.
Thank you, David. We'll turn some time over to City Manager Towery to just update us. I think we've talked a little bit, and Jerry did a good job of kind of going over that. But anything else, Jeff, that you'd have?
Jerry did do a good job. It's an opportunity for David and I to thank Jerry and the folks at MCM for their patience. This has been a lengthy series of back and forths, a few starts and stops. Comcast has gone through 2 staff transitions during the time that we've been having this negotiation, and they've been patient as we've kind of worked our way through the process. I didn't know if David had anything else to add at this point.
Okay. So I'll ask the council if there's any discussion after Jeff has given us some further insights. Okay.
I do have one comment. And it's just an explanation of my vote. I am ordinarily, I've made an issue of separating these between 2 meetings for the purpose of getting multiple stakeholders in and making them aware. I'm not aware of any other stakeholders for this issue besides MCM 11. There's no other providers, so I'd be fine with doing this in one meeting personally.
Any public comment, any additional public comment to be had since our discussion? Seeing none, once again, council, any discussion on ordinance 5056? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to pass ordinance number 5056 to a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
It's, let's see, Sal and was it Remy, first and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. And so this motion passes to a second reading, and so 6-0. So what I'll do is I'll have the city attorney have a second reading of this ordinance number 5056 by title only.
Excuse me. This is a second reading of ordinance number 5056, an ordinance amending the 2012-2022 franchise agreement between the City of McMinnville and Comcast of Oregon 2 Incorporated, ordinance 4960.
Thank you, David. I'll ask for a motion to adopt ordinance number 5056.
So moved.
Second.
And a motion by Kelly and a second by Wendy. We'll call for a roll call. Melissa?
Councillor Drapkin?
Aye.
Councillor Garvin?
Aye.
Councillor Peralta?
Aye.
Councillor Rudin?
Aye.
Councillor Stassens?
Aye.
Council President Minke?
Aye.
Ordinance number 5056 passes unanimously 6-6. And so thank you for our discussion and our moving forward on that. This evening I have one add item. I sent out a email to council and to, well, I CC'd the council on a, I emailed the McMinnville Water and Light Commission and CC'd the council on a appointment that I would like to make to the McMinnville Water and Light Commission with the resignation of Mike Keys, who had been on the commission for probably close to 10 years. We have an opening, and he resigned in the month of July, and I've been diligently searching to find a replacement that would bring some additional insights to the commission. And so I shared with the council the name of Nancy Carlton, who has been on the commission for about 9 months, about 10 years ago when Mike replaced her, and they're back in town. Nancy had to resign because her husband was running for the position of, put his name in for the financial director for Mac Water and Light, which he received. And so Mark has been retired for about a year and a half now, and Mark and Nancy are back in town full-time. They've been taking care of family issues. And so I would like to appoint Nancy Carlton to the McMinnville Water and Light Commission, but I need to get a sustaining vote from this body. And so I'll just open it up for any discussions that any of you would have. If any of you know Nancy, any thoughts, I'll open that up. Adam?
Yeah, I read through the email you sent over with her application, and knew Mark and knew Nancy a little bit through Mark, and I definitely think she's a very strong candidate, and I could support you in that recommendation.
Thank you, Adam. Kelly?
I've known her for a while, and I think she's eminently qualified, and I think she'd add some diversity to the board, so I think that would be nice.
Thank you. Any comments?
Just to say more of the same, that
Okay.
she's extremely intelligent, well-versed in the subject, and also with having Mark serve for as long as he did as a paid member of the McMinnville Water and Light as the finance director. She's also very in tune with the history of the commission, and I think she's a wonderful appointment.
Great.
I got to know her a little bit today for the first time, along with Wendy, and Kelly knew her. But highly qualified, highly willing, highly motivated, and willing to do the work. And I would highly recommend her support the nomination. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I guess the only thing that I would add is that I also got to know her today at the tour. And she's very sharp, and I appreciate that she brings the power electrical side. When we have, as somebody mentioned today, we're pretty strong on the water side, and she'll bring a real wealth of knowledge with regards to electricity, because her background is very strong in that. So, yeah, I strongly support your.
As I mentioned in the email, John Dietz and myself met with Nancy just to make sure that the communication style and that we could communicate well. Nancy left before John came on board, but had known Nancy through Mark quite well. And it was kind of like a family reunion this morning, everyone getting back together. So I'll just ask for those that can support me in the appointment of Nancy Carlton to the McMinnville Water and Board. Please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll go through that process. I think I'll work with David because we need to send just a summary memo to the commission that I've appointed, and the council has sustained that nomination, and then we'll go through that process in our August meeting with Water and Light.
Okay. And I would ask the city recorder to ensure that the mayor's letter that was sent out to the councilors and whatever material were attached to that related to this agenda item be included in the minutes for the meeting so that they're part of the official record. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That takes us to the advice and information items, and so we'll have an opportunity this evening to have reports from councilors on committee and board assignments. And so I think, Alan, I'll start with you to my right.
Thank you, Mayor. On the McMinnville Affordable Housing Task Force, I think I'll defer to the chair, Remy Drabkin, on that. She can give a update on that on our next meeting. And let's see, we've got an airport commission meeting September 4th. Unless something strange happens, that'll be our next meeting, September 4th of the airport commission. The Historic Landmarks Committee is due to meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. I haven't seen an agenda on that, but I'm assuming that's still on for 3 p.m. tomorrow, July 25th.
Thank you. Remy?
So as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of vacancies, all quite rapidly that have occurred on the Affordable Housing Task Force. And so we've actually canceled this month's meeting for two reasons. One, to allow the remaining members to continue the work that's underway, but also with the hopes that we'll get some applications to fill those positions here in the short term. So that the Affordable Housing Task Force meeting, which normally would have been held tomorrow, is canceled for this month. And then on our homeless subcommittee, we've changed the meeting times for that as well. So it was a monthly meeting, but similarly, we weren't having quite enough time to get work done in between. So we were experiencing some repetition within the meetings. So we've changed that to that meeting will now happen every other month instead of every month, as the work that's done in there is quite it's taking a lot of large entities and trying to bring people together, and it just takes more than seems to be able to happen within a month-long period. We do have a new appointment on that committee, and that's Carrie Martin, who has been doing a lot of work and grant writing with YCAP, and also works with the county, and so I think she'll be a great addition there. And we had a presentation from Ali Treichel. I hope she'll forgive me for butchering her name, but she's the homeless initiatives coordinator that works with Marion and Polk County. And so she came and met with us last week and gave us some new material, or at our last meeting gave us some new material and new ideas to be working from, as well as ideas for looking at how Marion and Polk County have brought together resources and made some steps forward. So it was a great meeting. We have good energy going there, and I think one of the other kind of things that has come up is that the Gospel Rescue Mission is very close now to completing the new facility, and that's I'm not sure exactly when the doors will open, but if you've been by any time recently, they've constructed that in like 6 or 8 weeks. It's pretty amazing. They've built that facility, and once that opens, we'll have 70 beds in the city. So that's it.
Thank you, Remy. Wendy?
So we did have an urban renewal advisory committee meeting. I was not there because I was away, but it was on July 11th. And if one of you guys were there, you could give an update. But we do have a lot of activity right now. We're looking at 2 properties that are in that area that our private investors have purchased. There's an application for property assistance from one of them, and the other one, well, actually both of them were at different places with regards to them, the 2 applications. So anyway, you guys might have more detail if you guys were there. If not, I can give an update next meeting. I can get an update from Heather. So, and the next meeting, it's always the first Wednesday of the month. So,
thank you, Wendy. Adam?
Our July YCOM meeting was canceled, and our August one will be most likely scheduled for the 16th due to Patty being out for some training, but we don't have a time yet for that, so they're still shooting emails back and forth to nail down the exact time.
Thank you. Sal?
The Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments is going through the process of updating its comprehensive economic development plan. It's a 5-year update, and I'm just trying to get up to speed on that process. We haven't had any meetings since our last one about a month ago, but that's one of the 2 main focuses. And then they sent us an email yesterday reminding us that the Portland State housing and homelessness survey population survey is due August 5th. So just a reminder for Heather, who's probably already on top of it. So,
Thank you. Kelly?
We met with Visit McMinnville last Wednesday, and it was a very upbeat meeting, really good results on social media, and our city manager continues to sustain us well on Twitter. We got some form of mention in the Reader's Digest, which seems odd, but it's one of the biggest publications around, so that was very nice. Overall, we're looking very good financially, and it's been a very upbeat source of information. A couple of meetings in the last month. One in particular was the emergency management type of meeting put on, I believe, by FEMA. At least some of the people were from FEMA, and it was very interesting. Scott and I both went, and we felt like we'd like to hear a little more discussion on this particular issue, so it sounds like it's coming up. So that was good, particularly how the council needs to be in sync on that if there is an emergency. So I will.
Okay. Just an update. We met last Thursday with the bypass committee, and we have been working very closely with ODOT on the cost of design and right-of-way acquisition, and we've got a soft number that has been presented to us of again, to summarize a little bit, this last legislative session gave us $22 million for phase 2 of the right-of-way, or the phase 2 of the bypass. We have had savings from phase 1 of $10,500, and so those two put together with a total estimate of about $184,841,000 to get us through the design and the right-of-way acquisition for phase 2. You take those dollars that we have been given to us from the state. We're sitting at somewhere about $153 million to get us to what they call shovel ready. And as we've mentioned before, and I want to be pretty transparent with this group, there's more than a likelihood that for phase 2 to be move forward, local matching of some sort is going to be needed, much like phase 2 or phase 1. Again, if you remember those that were on the council, that kind of hit us out of the blue. We weren't so much aware of that, but we're sharing with you that at some point the committee is going to come and ask for some additional dollars from each of the committees. We're going to approach the county to cover the share of the smaller entities within the county that don't participate but get benefit from that. And so I just roll that out, that that's going to be asked at some point. The first couple of opportunities to the table will probably get additional fundings that would be available through the state and federal government. And this does not include the construction. That's all going to be federal, and that's up in the air. So more to come, but I just wanted to give you something that we thought was going to be about 90 million, looks more to be about 152. And could even be higher. But I'll tell you, ODOT is working with us and sharing information, and they come and give us an update at each of the bypass meetings, and more to come, more talking with. Go
just
ahead.
One question. They had like 3 scenarios, and they presented, and they were recommending a particular scenario?
Yeah, the scenario that ODOT has landed on is up on Rex Hill, where there will be an interchange at Rex Hill. They they could do overpasses and merging that would be so much more costly. And ODOT's come back and says what they'd like to see is coming down Rex Hill from Portland, there would be a two turn lanes that would go onto the bypass at Rex Hill, 2 lanes that would bypass on the right-hand side so it wouldn't impact traffic, and then there will be coming from the bypass going towards Portland, 2 lanes that merge into Highway 99 with those 2 lanes will go up to the top of Rex Hill, because trucks, if they had to stop, they need to be able to keep their speed up to merge over. And so that is the third, approach, and ODOT seems to be favoring that, and that is where we're getting the $152 million for design and right-of-way purchasing. So again, a lot more to come on this. We meet on a monthly basis, but now we have a little more focus, and we've had some really good discussions from that perspective.
I have a question. So the $152 million is the next transportation package. It's a portion of the next transportation package ask that ODOT's going to make of the upcoming legislature. Is that? No.
Again, the legislature has given all the monies out, and we got $22 million from that package for
the current biennium.
I don't think they're going to come to the table again. That was such a large package, and that was associated with the increase in gas taxes. And so I think this is their solution for the next number of years. Okay, and so that's why they're saying local participation is a need.
Well,
but my
question, surely
is,
they don't expect us to put up like $100 million.
No, they don't. It'll just be a portion of that to show our good faith to move forward.
So where do we get the rest of it?
Sal?
Well, what I was unclear about is when that money is going to be requested. Do we have a sense of a timeline for when they're going to go for that next package?
Well, again, from my perspective, the money has been allocated through the legislature, and it's based off of a graduating fuel tax that the legislature put. And so,
but we're getting $22 million out of the $150 million from the current gas tax.
No. We are getting 22 million out of multiple millions that are coming out of the gas tax.
Out of the 150 that we need.
Yeah, of the 150, yeah, we get 22 plus the holdover and again, I can forward this out to you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, man.
Yeah, let me forward this out to you because I think it might be helpful. I'll forward this this information out to you so that you guys have access to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Alan.
Just one more thing. I think I should make aware, and most of us probably know about, there's a couple of significant advisory committees being formed right now and staffed that as we go forward in the future with growth and housing and needs such as that are being. So it's a couple important advisory committees. So there's one that's the Project Advisory Committee for the Buildable Lands Inventory / Housing Needs Analysis / Housing Strategy.
And we had our first meeting last week.
Right.
It's the Advisory Committee?
Yes.
Okay. Then the other one is...
and that is, we are... that group is being led by a consultant. Echo Northwest is leading us down that path, and a number of us had an opportunity to go to that, and we had a lot of people around the table, including Sid Freeman was a part of that, and I think it was a very favorable meeting and some insights and some direction for us.
Yeah, we had someone from the state too.
Yeah, we had someone from the state land conservation. I think it was DLC.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very relevant committee.
Yeah, it will be.
And there's another one that I don't know. I don't think it's started yet. Is the Neighborhoods Advisory Committee, which is being formulated now, put together for enhancing and making livable the neighborhoods of the community, and what is the basis of that, and what actually is a livable neighborhood. And so there's a committee being formed on that I've been invited to be a part of, to where, as we go forward in the future, what kind of standards, what's the basis of establishing those neighborhoods and how well they should be decided upon and designed for the benefit of the community.
Absolutely.
So, two really good committees just getting started.
And so, again, from my perspective, as we go to these committees, reporting back is critical. And again, as a member of council, we can go to any committee meeting and sit and observe, and especially when they're having a great, pertinent discussion. Last thing that I had is tomorrow I'll be leaving for the Oregon Mayors Association annual conference, where the mayors of all the cities of Oregon have an opportunity to get together, and we have seminars and we talk about pertinent things, much like when we go to the OLCC conference, and but it's much more focused on mayors and many more smaller communities participating. So look forward to representing McMinnville there and getting to know many more mayors and coming back possibly with some solutions that other communities have been able to embed into their policies and procedures. So I'll report next council meeting to you on that. Okay, any other council input? Hearing none. Rich, anything from the fire department?
A few things, Mr. Mayor and councilors, just to try and update you on where we're at. Earlier, I briefed a couple of council members that today McKenzie was architect and engineering firm who built the fire station, was at the fire station working on our engineering study to present the data that we need for a seismic upgrade to the fire station to apply for the grant that's out there. Rough guess from the engineers that were just walking through and taking photos and looking at designs and drawings and looking at our facilities as they currently sit, estimated the project to be worth probably $1.5 to $2 million as we move forward. That will be fully grant funded if we're successful in a grant application. And part of McKenzie's work is to help us be successful in the grant application. So that process, I briefed the council originally, and the budget is moving forward, and hopefully we'll get in. We are ahead of the curve as far as the application timing and process goes, and we are one of the first ones with this group getting the work done. So we have some time to work on the application side, on the back side as we're moving forward. Secondarily, Councilor Garvin indicated that the YCOM meetings have been canceled currently, board meeting, but I wanted to update the council on the new CAD project as we're moving forward with it. And computer-aided dispatch is what the acronym stands for. Our staff, police department staff, and IS staff have been intimately involved in the mobile application of the CAD programming and converting our laying the parameters, converting our existing hardware over to our new software programs. And there's going to be a lot of added features that are going to make both law and fire responses easier. Mapping will be easier. Information gathering will be easier for law enforcement. So there's a lot of added benefits to this program and to this upgrade. So this is a huge deal for public safety and our ability to interface with YCOM in the field. And the majority of the project upgrade has been funded by our dues and a portion by the county as a part of a contractual agreement a couple of years ago. So we contribute. We're paying for it. I'm not saying we're getting it for free, but it's an upgrade that's well overdue and bringing us into the 20th century as far as these types of electronic interfaces, and hopefully it's going to make things a lot smoother for all the public safety operations. I had a brief meeting with Bruce Hubbard, who's the chief of Amity. Next week, we're going to sit down and start developing a timeline for transition for his departure and our move into the Amity Fire District as a administrative oversight. We'll be working with him and the board up, going down and getting up to speed and getting educated on their processes and procedures for the rural district, so that I can just keep the district operating as it is currently, so that there's not a transition shock when the contract comes into effect, hopefully in the beginning of July of this upcoming year. So I'll be spending some time down there with their board, as well as Bruce and the assistant chief, getting up to speed on their operational issues and challenges and what they do and what they don't do, and their district, so they function a little bit different than we do. So I'll have to get up to speed on the district dynamics and work with SDAO on some of those issues. But that's part of our move towards what we're trying to accomplish with consolidation of the larger county area. And I'll leave it. Actually, we have 3 new hires that we're working on. One is successful on all of the background and is starting August 6th. And 2 are pending backgrounds and psychs and medical physicals, partially because they're deployed on conflagrations. There'd be a little bit of delay in getting them through those processes, but we'll be moving through that process to try and address those folks and get them in the door.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Marcia? Melissa? David? And Jeff?
3 quick items. It's hot. There was an article in the newspaper last week identifying the library as one of the cooling facilities in the community. The very next day, the HVAC system went down. Looked like it was going to be down for a very long time. Turns out it was just a mouse. It's back up and running again, so we do have that cooling center available for folks who are in need of some respite during the heat. As a follow-up to Councilor Menke's comments, the timing is perfect. Your next full work session will be focused on emergency management planning, the status of emergency management planning and resiliency planning here in the community. We'll be meeting over in the police department. We'll run the council through a little bit of a tabletop exercise. We're going to focus particularly on the council's roles and responsibilities in the event of an emergency. We'll also have some updates from our staff, from staff at Water and Light and staff at the county. And because of a fluke of the calendar, the 3rd Wednesday is the day after the 2nd Tuesday. So in your inbox, if you haven't read it, we've sent you a meeting notice. We're actually pushing the work session out to the 22nd of August. That's the 4th Wednesday, but it's in between your 2 council meetings that week. And then finally, next Tuesday, the executive team will be offsite doing a team building session. We will be here in town, so we're not taken off to the coast or anything like that. Bob O'Neill, the former executive director of the International City County Management Association, will be in town. We're able to tag team on some training he's doing for another local government in the area. Bob will spend a day talking about the future of cities, about the next big trends that will influence cities, what organization needs to be a high-performing organization, and the characteristics of senior management and attributes of a good team player will be for the future of cities. And so we'll come out of that full day to learn. We'll learn something about ourselves collectively and individually, and continue the good work of the community. That's all I have.
And then, Jeff, Thursday between 1 and 2 is the opportunity to meet the candidates for the HR director.
Thank you. 4 items. We're interviewing 3 finalists for the Human Resources Manager position that the Council and Budget Committee approved in the current fiscal year's budget. Those interviews will be occurring on Thursday of this week from 1 to 2 in this room. We'll be having an open meet and greet for members of the City Council and city employees who would like to be able to meet the candidates and fill out comment cards. So if you can join us between 1 and 2, that will be your opportunity.
Thank you. Anything else that needs to be brought up? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting. We are going to meet in executive session under ORS 192-.66 02D to conduct deliberations with persons designed to carry out labor negotiations. So, Council, if we can go into the conference room. Thank you.